Hey guys, how you doing today? Hope you're having a good morning. I am here with the promised video of how to get the last night's lab to actually work. I want to apologize for not being able to get this to work yesterday due to a self-admitted error that I will explain to you in class on Monday. But without further ado, I'm just going to pick off kind of where we left off and just show you how to get BurpSuite to spy on the transactions between the client and the server, okay? So we can get those passwords and credentials, okay? So just to recap, we did an Nmap scan, we did a net discover, and we discovered the IP for the actual target, which is 10.0.2.15, okay? We found out through Nmap SV that we had two ports open. Port 22 for SSH, which is used to communicate securely over a network, and then port 8080, which is the alternate HTTP port, and typically used for a web server. So we navigated to the site and we found a set of credentials that was right on the page. It says guest, and we logged in. So as we discussed in class, since the box was being very generous in the way that it explained its processes, we determined by looking at the page, doing an inspection, that it actually used the post method for posting information to the server, which creates a vulnerability for us that we can exploit to steal a session cookie or an ID band to get inside the club, like we discussed, and that we can see the creation process and potentially replicate it in the system. So we also discussed that the way that the system creates these session cookies is by taking the provided username and password, so what we put inside of the form, just like guest or whatever, all right, username and password. It takes the password and it wraps it up, it encrypts it in ROT13 using a ROT13 cipher, and then it takes the username, the password encoded in ROT13, and converts that to base64, thus giving us our session cookie. But that's not all. We can also see how that password is encoded, and now we are able to send up the usernames that we discovered through the use of Hydra, Venus, and Magellan, and send that information forward in the username field, and now take our ROT13 encryption, give it two true statements, and allowing the server to respond with yes. Not only yes, but it is going to respond with the username and the actual password, a password that it has already stored on the back end in a database. So in order to get the passwords to Venus and Magellan, we are going to give it a packet with the username, the true username, and the true password that we got from observing the transaction under the guest account, and then converting that to base64, creating our session cookie, and then sending it to the server so that it can respond. We're going to do all of this using the BurpSuite Community Edition. And the process is going to be very, very simple, but it will take a couple of steps, so just stay with me, okay? First things first, we're going to go to our proxy tab. I'm already here, and we're going to turn on our intercept. We are then going to open the browser. We can also open the browser before, but it's up to you. I know I gave my Kali instance a pretty good amount of RAM, so I wouldn't have any issues for this. But if you have any issues, you know what to do. Just give it some more RAM. So here's my browser. I am then going to navigate to the site so that I can observe the transaction. That's by typing in the IP address, by typing in the port, just like we did in class, so that we can see the transactions that are as they're happening. Okay, so here we are. We created the GET request, so we're asking the server for a web page that we want to access by putting in its own URL. Okay, I am now going to send that forward, and the server responds with the login page. I am now going to put in the guest account credentials, and I am going to log in. that gets sent, that we mentioned in class, as a post request. I am posting information to the server. I am going to use BurpSuite to forward that packet that I have created, and the server will respond with the actual login page. This is the step that we were missing yesterday. Let's go ahead and reload the page, which is then going to show us the actual session cookie that we created. I think we were able to do this yesterday, okay? But now we know that BurpSuite already has a base64 decoder right here. And yesterday we took the password, which we determined was encoded in ROT13 by going into CyberChef, putting it in here, typing in ROT, and then just trying all the different ROTs until we got ROT13, dragging our module over, and we see that yes, just like we suspected, the password is still guessed, and it's encoded in ROT13. So, like we mentioned, we are going to take now the username that we want the password to, starting with Venus, and we are going to form a packet that has two true statements. We have Venus, which is a true username that we got from the account, and a true ROT13 encoded password like THRFG that we got by observing the guest transaction. We are then going to do just like the server did, and we are going to convert that to base64, therefore creating our new session cookie in base64. Okay? Please rewatch this video if you want to see that again. But very simply, I am just creating a username and password right here, line, where I put the username on the left and I put my known true password on the right, and then I am taking base64 and converting it to base64. I am going to copy this with Control-C, and I am coming back to my BurpSuite. Now, we need a way to modify this packet. Notice that I cannot really modify this as much, right? Just a couple of things, but I am going to send it to the repeater, which is going to re-forward this packet to the actual server. I am going to take this line out, and I'm going to copy the session key that we created with Venus. But I also have to change the username here to Venus or whatever other username you want to place in there. Okay? But it has to be a true username. Then I am going to send that, and the server will respond with a slightly modified authentication cookie. Notice that they start the same way. DMVU, DMVU, but they end differently. This one ends in HAGY, and this one ends in YZMC. Okay? But if I go ahead and decode this, notice that the ROT13 password has changed. It is no longer THRFG, it is now IRAHF. I can then take that IRAHF, put it into CyberChef, use a ROT13 cipher to decode it so that we can see what the password is. And it looks like the password to Venus is Venus. So I am going back to my notes, and I am going to update that. Always good to keep good notes. Alright, so now that we did that, now we need to find out what the Magellan password is. So let's do the same thing. Let's create a line that has both the Magellan username, and we are going to leave the same password in ROT13 right there, which is a true statement for the server. We're getting the server to say yes. And I am going to encode that now to base64, creating my new session key for Magellan. I am going to take this, I'm going to copy it, I am going to replace the cookie that I have here on my repeater, send that, paste that in there, change my username to Magellan, and I'm going to send this packet forward. Notice that it responded with a completely different session key that we can now decode by just highlighting it. Look at the ROT13. Crazy looking, right? Kind of big. I'm going to paste that in here into CyberChef. All right, we're going to add the ROT13 module from CyberChef. Just drag it over. And it looks like the password for Magellan is Venus Genealogy 1989. Okay, so I'm going to update my notes and put that in there. Now, what do we do once we have credentials, guys? We want to test them. Just because the credential is there does not mean that it actually works, right? So we know that SSH is open. How about we use these credentials to try to actually log in? So I am going to pull up a terminal and I am going to test my credentials by typing in, let's start with Venus at 10.0.2.15, and I am going to test out the password, VENUS, and see what happens. It did not work. Let's try it again just to make sure that I typed it in correctly. It did not work. Third time's the charm. It did not work. So once again, just because you have creds don't mean they work. That's why it's important that we test them. So let's test out Magellan. Magellan, all right, 10.0.2.15, and the password is VENUSIAN. Let me try that. VENUSIAN Geology 1989. And see what happens. Let's see if I didn't like mash the fingers. I think I might have. VENUSIAN Geology 1989. And it looks like I was able to successfully come in. Now that you're here, you can run all the commands to try to enumerate this box, right? I'm not going to have you get root for this box for the reasons that I discussed in class. But you can see that you can cat the flag, you can capture that, take a screenshot of that, and then go look at your assignment page and you'll be able to see all of the different commands. There's 4 screenshots that I need you guys to do at this point in your paper, in your document, okay? Uname TAC A will be one of those. Netstat TAC TULMP to see all of the processes, all of the ports that are open and listening. Which is kind of important. Looks like there's some kind of Python. Well, that's it. That's the Python server right there. And it looks like there's another port right here that's listening. There's SSH, and that could be useful stuff for later enumeration. But this pretty much ends the entire lab. I'd like to once again apologize for not being able to do this last night. And I look forward to seeing you on Monday. As always, if you have questions, my email is available to you. Email me and we can work through any problems you may encounter. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care.